It turns out that this little piece of real estate right here is the most valuable uh, plot of land on this entire map, and I'm going to show you why. My name is Jay Martin. Thanks for watching. This is a replay of a Napoleon Total War game, and it's a 4v4 game on the Arcole map. This turned out to be, I think, the most interesting, most epic, most hard-fought game that I've ever played, and I've played quite a few. And after the game was over, players from both teams were like, "Wow, Jay, you need to do a video of this one." And I'm going to try to do my best job to put it together and make it so that the viewer can actually follow the action. If you're not familiar with this map, I encourage you to load it up and check out some of the peculiarities of it. I'm beginning to love and hate this map for the same reasons. You know, you hate it for the same reasons that you love it. It's really interesting. Sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't. This was a game played at what I felt was a really high level between all of the players involved, and it was a great pleasure to get to play with them. I'm going to split this video up into two parts. In the first part, I'll take you to the mid-game, and in the second part, we'll conclude the game. And so, let's start moving around. I want to introduce you to everyone who played. This is the center line of the map. If you look at the mini-map and you're not familiar with this map, the dominant feature is this river that goes all the way across it. There you go. And starting from left to right on my team, I am here. I'm playing as the GB player. In the second position is SK Marsh. In the third position, playing as Prussia, is Karlov. And on the far right as GB is Triphammer. Playing on the other team, on this far side is Riskard. In the second position is Hichu. And here as GB is Karaticus Finch. And on the far side in the fourth position is Grog. And with these, all of the players involved have actually been playing this map a bit over the last few days, and the familiarity of it that I think that we're all kind of building with it led to some interesting gameplay. A few things happened that are interesting in this battle. I think that most of the players involved actually embraced the 125 unit. A few players on the I'm going to call them the other team, used 125s, and then I actually brought 125s myself, and I know that Karlov brought 125s as well. This is a rifle unit from the opponent moving into stake up, drop a line of stakes in this ford. And then over on my side, this is kind of my and SK's area of the map. We're deployed to sort of assault these crossings. And they're going to drop lines of stakes here as well. That turns out not to be a huge deal because there isn't, frankly, that much cav used in this game. Cav really isn't good on this map. There are some exceptions to that I'll try to get to in a minute. Some interesting notes about the tactical deployment of everybody. The first is that Riskard and Hitshu sort of deploy right along here to cover these crossings, and with a couple of their units leaking out into the center here. And this is Karaticus Finch, who's deploying to cover these crossings right here, leaving them just their Prussian player on the far side to cover this crossing here. Now, the initial deployment of the players in a 4v4 puts one of our players here and one of our players here, and because of this river, obviously funneling them this direction. So just kind of the raw deployment of the initial, where your armies spawn, encouraged kind of two of our players to make a move in this area, which turns out to be kind of good because only one of their players deploys in a natural position to go and protect this crossing. And you'd think that'd be enough. But what winds up happening is that their third player kind of deploys in this no man's land area, and our third player has an option to cross here and then try to engage up this direction. But because of this river, they're already pushed this direction. That encourages our two right players to attack this direction. The other kind of concept that our team was wrestling with at the beginning, you can see these guys aren't moving across the river, which is smart, is that we don't have any really good place to go. I mean, these are all really good players on the other side of the map, and fighting up here is really, it looks good, but really this is devastatingly hard, and we can't fight across these crossings unless they let us. In fact, over the course of the game, SK and I make, I don't know how many, but we attempt to cross these so many times and have to pull back so many times, so that really isn't good. And the opportunity that, we're getting a 2v1 on this player here, that really kind of determined our strategy. And you can see Karlov right now is moving his 125 units up to put fire on this section where that crossing is covered. Now the real trick to this game is you have to get across, and you have to be able to buy enough time, or you have to clear out an area big enough to redeploy your army on the other side so that you can fight it out. And this move by Karlov up on, this is actually a really good position with 125 units to do it. I never really realized that until now, but Karlov from here can get an elevated firing position on their defense of that crossing. See that? From right here, he's in a forest, so he has protection. He has an elevation advantage. That's going to let him put fire on this section right there. Now that combined with native fire from your fourth player advancing up the ford looks pretty good for you. Like, see this firefight that's breaking out right here? Let me try to get you a good look at it. You have a huge advantage here. You're fighting downhill. You're in cover. And more importantly, that we had 2 units shooting at once. So they're going to take some really good shots and force that rifle unit to withdraw here in a second. Which, I guess when you look at it, might be the play of the game. Like, this unit is having to withdraw right there. Now, I would suggest that Grog's defensive line for holding this area is not ideal. One of the real differences that you have to accept transitioning to playing on a weird bottleneck map like this is that these units here that are deployed in line like this aren't covering anything. They're kind of useless. They might as well just be in column formation back there for all that they're doing. And you kind of got to get used to moving your people around. Over in this area of the map, notice that we are not contesting this crossing at all. We're not putting anybody there. This was a bit of an oversight on our part. What SK is trying to do to control that is he's just decided to cover the bottlenecks here and here. This becomes an issue for us in a moment because this team, Fincher, is going to be pretty aggressive and start to move across. And that's bad because it theoretically lets them get on the flank of these 2 players. Our 2 players here are kind of committing to the push across the crossing right there, and this does theoretically leave their flank exposed here. And in a minute, we're going to have SK start to deploy some of his resources to do that. In order to cover that, that's me moving some of my line units up to kind of take up some of SK's space in the line. I thought that our team had really, really good communication in this game, and there are a bunch of plot twists that come and go in this particular game, but our team communicated really well and balanced resources really, really well. This is another good aspect of teamwork from the opposing team. Finch, their GB player, has moved his rifles, and he has a 125 there, in to kind of combat this problem. What we've been really successful, though, is they have cleared a way for Trip to start moving up the bank. This is a really badass moment right here. Because this, if we can win the fight for this crossing, then we will be able to do some really, really nice things. What Trip does is he gets some fencibles in there, or some militia units, to cover for his lights, and these troops are able to march right up and get some really good shots coming up here at the Prussian player. See these stakes here? These stakes here were a problem. We're going to try to solve that problem here in a moment. But this is a look at the Prussian defensive line surrounding the ford here. And as we zoom back over, you can see this was Finch who started to make a move, and then we immediately countered. We're moving about what is that, 8 of our units over this direction, and he sort of wisely pulled back. Again, it's one of those flank or B-flank things. If he would have tried to make the crossing here, then SK could have hopped on his flank as well. And this is SK and I making the big redeployment. You can see a lot of his troops moving over. Yada, yada, yada. Now, Hitsu has an interesting thing going on. He's bunched 4 units of Volts over here, but it doesn't really do much of them. I think these units wind up sitting here for the majority of the game. And I mean, I guess they're being valuable because they are really kind of covering this crossing right here. There is this initial kind of feint down into the bottleneck that SK is just going to redeploy and they're going to trade some shots on. But nothing really develops here. You know, it's really hard to make anything happen. Over on my end, I have 2 rifle units, and Riskard and I are kind of exchanging, skirmish fire. Obviously, he honestly really gets the better of me throughout the whole game on this area. I keep moving my rifles up, and my rifles keep getting shot by his Volts. And Riskard got wonderful value out of his Volts in this game. I guess those are Chasseur. But Riskard's light infantry that he had guarding this crossing, he got really incredible value for over the course of the game, I felt. And this is us redeploying to cover the crossing there. The real action in this game right now, and the important part, kind of part 1, is us fighting across this crossing. And this is one of those simple things we've talked about before that, well, there's 2 things. From a strategic standpoint, if we zoom up, we've got way more flags over there than they do, so this should go quite well for us. On a more simple kind of tactical note, the important thing is that Trip is just kind of able to inch forward slowly but steadily and force this guy to withdraw. He's routed 3 of his light infantry right about now. Karlov is trying to really keep the GB player busy right here with shots across the river. And this move right here, see, look at all those babies moving. That is a whole bunch of infantry moving across. And if Triphammer can get his army across and get a beachhead here, then things are going to be going really, really well for us. That is what you're looking for. Another important part of this maneuver from Triphammer was it got him beyond the stakes right here, which means that the stakes block a lot of your bullets. When you shoot from behind the stakes, they block a lot of your bullets. So with Trip able to get his units past the stakes, that gives us a lot of extra firepower. This is a real crisis moment. Those Lancers are coming right into Trip's lights right there, and this unit just gets completely fucked up. We were watching this. I was watching this when this happened, and this unit takes fire from about. Those Lancers take fire from about 8. What is that? 8, 11. They take fire from 11 units in one horrendous volley. While I was watching that Lancer actually, its like unit card got down to, it said 1 of 45. It took that many casualties that fast that the game couldn't even make it rout quick enough. That was a really good example of supporting fire taking out Cav. At this point, Triphammer makes a decision, and he pulls his lights back out of the line, and moves regular line infantry up. Pretty good idea. Because they were taking a ton of fire from these light infantry units. And this is really what I thought was kind of interesting about this assault up on Triphammer's flank, is that this is people always complain that the video game doesn't really reflect kind of what real life Napoleonic tactics were, and the dominant tactic the French used was a big attack in column formation. Trip is essentially doing that right now, just attacking up in column formation. And when you play a game on grassy flats, you don't ever do that, obviously. But this right here is the deal. This is, part 1 of the game is, can we get a bridgehead? And you can see the Prussian player is having to withdraw right there, and we got the bridgehead. And from this position, we're going to be able to do all kinds of interesting things. And you can see the whole army is moving over. Actually, at this point, SK and I both have cav units over there, and then Karlov has 5 units. So we're actually going to be able to deploy across the bridge here with a whole bunch of force, not just the initial 2 units against 1, but also with 4 extra cav units that we pulled from the other side of the battle. A cursory look over here. In order to answer this threat, the GB player is going to have to start shifting resources this direction, and it actually leaves this bridge crossing unguarded. That crossing is kind of irrelevant to us from a defensive standpoint because we've already got to cross the bridge right there. They can come across that for all we want. All it's going to do is draw forces away from the main line. But we maybe, throughout the game, we kept trying and talking about, can we get a unit over that bridge? Just to, can we do something on that bridge? And we never really got to be able to put that together. This is us in the center crossing. SK has chased them away by deploying 3 of his light infantry there, and you can see that SK is moving more line units. He's actually going to deploy a pretty substantial force to threaten this crossing here. And back on this side of the map, SK and I are very content just to hold Hitsu off. And then on my flank, there is still some... Yeah, this is me making another move to cross the bridge. I bet if I kept the camera here the whole time, you'd see me make a move forward and back about 10 times over the course of this game. This is just an incredible standoff. And again, my light infantry really underperformed against Riscard's Volts. So that's kind of the game state at the point where we win the bridgehead this direction. Actually, I think this is my cav. I actually threatened to go across the bridge. They had left it unguarded for a little bit, and there's a whole bunch of light infantry that I could have ran into, but they do push a line unit back that direction. So what happens here is this is Riscard's cav from way on the other side of the map, and the problem I think is that this team just didn't have any real coordination right about here. Like, where do we set up our defense? It's pretty much, it winds up being like the Prussian player on the left and the GB player on the right. But honestly, if we can spill this many units across the bridge here, then we're going to be able to deploy, double the force that they are. Double the force. And this is Karlov, actually. He's finally making the move to bring his Prussian troops over to cover that bridge right there. So that is part 1 of the battle, or at least what I'm going to call the first phase of the battle, is that engagement that occurred on the far right. And these are these 2 guys facing off here. I think that our team is going to start pushing more and more resources to kind of threaten this area. The real interesting decision that our team had to make here when we were playing this game is, do we just be content to push up here? And obviously we're going to be pushing up here really, really aggressively on this front. And then the second one was, how bad do we want to open up a second front against these guys? How bad do we want to work for it? And we decided that, the argument was that, well, if we don't do anything over here, then they'll be able to push reinforcements this direction. So some action here, just to keep them occupied, will pin down forces that can't help over there. We did 2 things to help that. The first is that this is me again, moving in to try to shoot Riscard, and we're trying to pin those guys. And then the second thing that we do is that SK makes this advance up this crossing right here. Now, a couple thoughts on this crossing. The first is that this crossing looks like a really good deal. This looks like a great place that you'd want to attack. The problem that you run into is that once you get up to about this area, you're going to take fire from here, here, and just straight in front of you. So this crossing is sort of meant to be flanked. I mean, it's built to be flanked. If you get across here, you're going to, and you advance a little bit, all they have to do is fall back these directions, and eventually they can get flanking fire on you. So marching up like SK is doing right now looks, pretty good right until the point where you advance far enough that they can put a bunch of flanking fire on you. Also, I mean, this team kind of respects the crossing. Obviously, they've got a whole bunch of firepower right there. to begin with. So it would take kind of a Herculean effort to cross that part of the river. The only real way we were able to win this crossing, you remember, is that Karlov was able to push his lights here, which kind of broke up the units defending, which allowed Trippe to move up in column formation. Is kind of what happens. So this move that SK is going to make across here winds up being really valuable as kind of an attention getter, but really it's hard to have legs to win this crossing, especially because the French player here is able to shift a bunch of resources over that direction if they really want. This is another look at Hitsu's lights guarding this particular crossing. I really didn't respect how good French Volts were until this game. Maybe they're just really good at. You just can't kill them. You know, you shoot a volley at them and you kill way less of them than you think you should. Yada yada yada. And then Riskard right here has a bunch of Volts hiding here, obviously behind these stakes. They're just you put a line of stakes in front of Volts, you can just shoot at them forever, and you're not going to fucking kill anything. Is kind of the problem, and that's kind of a look at my army that I'm trying to get across. The river right here. Trying to get across the river there. So this is a zoom back to the far right end of the map, and this is a really impressive display of firepower, especially right here. What you have are a bunch of Prussian lights that are backed up by French lights in line formation. They're going to spread out right now. This glob of units is going to be able to put out a ridiculous amount of firepower. Just a ridiculous amount of firepower. And they are going to be able to chew through units really, really quick. I think that if I was this team right now, this team has a huge problem because you can't engage a force this size on kind of an open field outnumbered 2-1, which is exactly what they're proposing to do right now. They also have a huge problem with that. Because SK is tying down a lot of the GB player, they should shift this direction. In essence, this is what it means to get out. There's kind of a simple way to put this and a complicated way to put this. The simple way to put this is that we're able at this point to push a whole bunch of force here, which means either they have two options. They can react and push more forces over to meet this big group, or they're going to lose. Okay? Now, if they do push forces away, where are they going to take them from? The real answer and what they should have done is they should have taken them from this section of the map. Because they can't take them from this section of the map because SK is obviously saying, hey, I want to attack here, right? But that's the Faustian bargain, that if they take too many forces away from this part of the map, then we've got all these units here ready to go. So this is one of those instances where some strategic movement gets us to a whole bunch of fire at one point in the field, and then from that we're able to force them into a bad decision. Either A, you weaken other parts of the field, or you move forces over here to counter this threat. Now, while this was going on, we were talking, and I kind of jokingly said, "Man, I'm not going to get a single kill this game. I'm just sitting here." And everybody on my team was, I was kind of joking around, obviously, but they're like, "No, you need to sit there because you need to pin down all these players." And the secondary thing that we were able to do is these two players, this is me and Marsh right here, and we're able to pin down units from two players and then about 8 or 9 units from their third player, which is what kind of freed us up to outnumber them here. Here they're facing 1.5 players. Our 2 players are against 1.5 players, and then our 2 players against 2.5 of their players. And you kind of got to think that if you're going to look at this game, as we're looking at it now, and you say, well, we got a problem, you have to do something. You really have to do something. And I think that maybe these 2 players here must have realized that we're also pinning down Finch's troops here, and either A, you got to get Finch's troops out of here and back into a productive part of the battle, or you got to do something drastic just to get your guys out of here. And at this point in the game, we have won that first bridgehead, and so I'm going to end part 1 of the battle here. And this is a look at, again, a column formation attack from Trip Hammer against the far extent of the Prussian line.